This happened last summer. I was working as a cab driver in San Diego. I always used to take the night shifts in summer because there were a lot of people out at night and I would usually get a lot of tips. But I'll never forget this one night. I was driving down the road late at night and noticed a couple standing on the sidewalk trying to get my attention. So I pulled up and they got in the cab, and the woman said that their house was in the country. I don't like going out to the country so late at night, but they insisted and said they would pay double, so I reluctantly agreed. On our way out, the man and woman were pretty quiet, only talking when telling me where to go. When we were out of the city, the man received a phone call and he was talking in a really low voice, almost whispering. I paid no attention, but as time went on, the man started talking louder and louder. He was quite angry at something, and then he said something that scared the living shit out of me. He said, "What the hell, man? I told you to dump it in the river, not in the fucking dumpster. The police are gonna find it there, you dumbass." Chills ran down my spine. I could only assume that he was talking about a dead body. I noticed that the man had realized his mistake of saying that. He hung up and started to stare at me a lot. Then he started to whisper to his wife about something, and then he pulled out his phone. I didn't know what he was doing, but his wife started giving me some different directions. I asked her why the different directions, and she replied that she had been drinking a lot and made a mistake. I didn't know if she was lying or telling the truth, but I continued to drive. I tried to keep calm, but on the inside, I just wanted to throw them out and drive off. When we arrived, there was no house, just an old graveyard. I asked them if this was the right place, and the woman said yes. So they paid and got out and walked off into the darkness. I immediately wanted to get the hell away from there. I don't know why they wanted to get dropped off at such a creepy place, but at that point, I was too scared to care. As I started my car, the man knocked on my window. He stared at me for a few seconds. I stared back, and then he said that there was a ridiculous amount of smoke coming out of my exhaust pipe and that I should check it out before leaving. I was scared shitless by that point. What happened next really made me regret picking up those two fuckers. Two cars pulled up and blocked the entrance. I knew what was going to happen to me if I didn't get out of there, so I ran to my door and I punched the man in the face. He fell to the ground and I took the time to get in my car and get the fuck out of there. Suddenly, at my passenger side window, the woman jumped out of nowhere with a crazed look in her eyes, pressed against the window with a knife in her hand. The man started to stand up with a bloody nose, but he had a gun in his hand, so I booked it out of there as fast as possible, and the man shot at my cab, breaking the back window. I had to plunge through a wooden fence and drive off-road to get past those cars blocking the entrance. I drove 5 times the speed limit, not caring how fast I was driving on my way back. I called the cops and kept looking behind to make sure I wasn't being followed. But then I noticed in the distance behind me a pair of lights. It was definitely them. So I turned my lights off and drove into a little clearing of trees and ducked down to avoid being seen. They drove past. I don't think they saw me, but I had to drive a different route, because who knows, they might have been waiting at the bottom of the road. So when I got back, I locked the door and called my friends and parents to tell them what happened. The next day, I got a knock on the door. It was the cops. They asked me some questions and such, and then they said that they searched the area and they found 2 fresh bodies buried in the ground. The people that were buried had been stabbed to death and had been missing for 3 weeks, and no one had been buried in that graveyard for over 12 years. I don't know if these killers have been caught, but ever since, I keep a gun in the glove compartment.
I was 13 at the time when this event happened. I used to live by a lake and I would often take part in some late night swimming, most of the time by myself. The last time I ever went swimming was at 3 in the morning. I still have a fear of swimming and nightmares about that night. I was alone swimming when I felt something brush up against my leg, Moss was a big problem in the lake, so I thought it was just that. I felt it again, but I still thought it was moss. After the third time, I felt a hand wrap around my leg. I then screamed, but then 2 hands came out of the water and wrapped around my mouth and pulled me under. I was thrashing apart to be free. I felt about 6 different hands all over my body holding me under the water. I somehow broke free and screamed as I ran out of the water to my house, leaving all of my belongings at the shore. When I got in my house, I realized both my parents were at work. I almost had a heart attack when I looked out of the window at the water and I saw a large silhouette of a man with 3 arms on each side of his body. It wasn't normal. I ran to my room where I keep my combat knife and hid at my closed door, holding it shut. I heard the front door opened and I remembered I didn't close the back door all the way when I heard it slowly creak open. My heart exploded in my chest when I heard that noise. I heard steps coming closer to my room. That thing tried the knob. When that didn't work, it tried pushing on the door. I put as much of my weight as I could on the door as possible. It stopped trying to open the door and left. I waited at the door for at least 3 hours until my mom got home. I told her everything and she called the cops. The cops searched around the lake and found nothing. They said whoever it was, that he's long gone. My mom didn't tell the police about the 6-armed thing, thinking I was probably just scared and thought up that part of the story. I know what I saw. After that, I always went to work with my mom or dad, because I didn't want to be alone in that house. I still have nightmares about that night. I also never go swimming anywhere, not even during the day in a public pool or with other people. That was over 15 years ago.
One night, I was sleeping in the living room because I was up all night due to being sick. It was about 2:30 a.m. in the morning, and I kept hearing the window getting hit by something. At first, I didn't pay attention to it, but the second time I went to go see what it was, and there was nothing there. When I went to go look after that, I decided to go back to sleep, and then I woke up again about 3:15 a.m. when I heard the window getting hit again. I went to go look again, and what I saw still haunts me to this day. There was 4 men wearing clown masks, and they were all staring at me, and one of them waved at me as I felt my heart racing to fear. I screamed for my mom. She came through straight away as I told her what happened. At first she didn't believe me, until she went to the door to check for herself. My mom looked through the peephole, only to let out the most violent scream I ever heard in my life. My mom rushed us upstairs and phoned the police. The police came and the 4 men were still there, and it turned out the 4 men were a group of kidnappers who were going about the street trying to kidnap people. I still get nightmares to this day about what would have happened if my mom had opened the door. One day, maybe back in 2011, me and my brother decided to stay home. I was maybe about 10 or 11 at the time. So I go into my room and start doing whatever it is a preteen would do. I go on their tablet. So of course, it naturally started raining. Me being pissed off and annoying sister I am, I went outside to grab my brother. Of course, he wasn't out there. Thinking he was pulling a prank on me, I yelled out, "Haha, very funny. Now get back inside or you'll be soaking wet." No avail. So I trudged out into the lawn in the pouring rain, getting my shirt and pants soaked in the process. I was getting pretty pissed off now, because I cupped my hands over my mouth and yelled, "Yo, get inside!" Still no avail. Now I was really pissed. I started trudging to the back of the yard where I could find my brother, laying in the grass face first. I shook his shoulder, and he looked up at me. I swear his pupils were all black for a second. I blinked thinking I saw it wrong, but then I realized we were in the backyard in the pouring rain. I grabbed his arm and pulled him inside, where he sat on the floor so he wouldn't get everything wet. I ran into the hallway where the closet was to get a towel for him. Empty. I ran to my parents' bedroom, which had more towels in it since my parents had their own bathroom. I found a towel and grabbed it quick. I turned around and looked into the mirror, noticing some small scratch under my eye. I figured it was just a bug bite. As I turned, the extra lamp my parents kept in the bathroom fell over. The bathroom felt really cold. I was about to get the fuck out of the bathroom when I noticed the door was closed. I flung it open, thankfully with the towel in my hand still, and ran to my brother and flung it on him. I told him to go outside on the porch because I thought someone was in the house. Being a quick thinker, I grabbed my tablet from my room, which allowed me to text, and ran out to my brother. I texted my mom that I thought someone was in the house. She came over in maybe about 15 minutes or so after I texted her. She went into her bathroom and found her lamp broken and the window slightly open. There appeared to also be 2 scratches in the area near where the window was opened. I have no idea what the fuck happened that day, but it still gives me nightmares. It was the summer around Memorial Day, and me and my mom were going shopping in Lowe's. My father was working that day, so he didn't come with us. My mom was looking for blinds, and we headed over to the blind section. I noticed something very strange. From the corner of my eye, this guy was watching me like a hawk. Uninterested in looking at blinds, I told my mother I was headed over to the light section. When I was walking, the same guy who was watching me like a hawk followed me. This man had a 7 o'clock shadow, brown eyes and brown hair. As I noticed him, he got closer and closer to me. As he got closer, I smelled the foul stench of beer. He pretended that he was looking for lights, as he was making some weird moaning noises. That was a clue for me to run like hell. Thankfully, another person came over, and this made the man walk away. I went to the opposite direction. Stupid me, I stopped and played with the sample blinds, and the same man came up to me and touched my butt. I was frozen to do anything. He went the opposite direction when he saw my mother coming towards me. I was too scared to say anything. I couldn't speak. Usually I talk to my mother on a car ride home, but it was real quiet this time. I noticed a car following us since we got back from Lowe's. It was a golden car that looked like it was made in the 1990s. We turned into our neighborhood and the car followed. My mom pulled into the drive-thru and the car kept going. I ran inside as my mom went in with me. My mom made her way into the kitchen as I watched outside the window. The same car stopped outside my house, what seemed like forever, then drove off. I have never seen this man. It's been 3 months. I don't know what he's doing following us home. I never told anyone this story except my grandmother, mom, and dad, as it happened when I was a young child. I'm now 23 years old and I thought I'd share it. Okay, so this started out when I was about 5 years old, and I remember it very vividly. Something very strange used to happen to me. When I was 5 during summer, I started having the same dream every day throughout that summer, then again the next summer, and it never happened again until this event transpired. My childhood home was a 2-story with 3 bedrooms. The 3 bedrooms were on the 2nd floor. My mom's room, guest room, and my room, and our attic was in the middle of these rooms. So this is what my dream was about. I was home alone in my mom's room watching TV because I didn't have cable in my room. I was just sitting there on my mom's bed and I heard a creak. I didn't think anything about it. I got up to get something and I saw a bald man, very skinny with horrible rotten teeth, smiling while he looked at me. And that is when my dream would stop. I had the same dream every day, and then the next summer I had it every day again. It scared me so much I was always talking to my grandma about it. About 3 years later, when I was 8, my mom had left me home alone for a couple hours. This is when my nightmare came true and my life changed forever. I was in my room playing with Barbies or something like that, and my mom had only been gone for about an hour at this point. I heard what sounded like a faint laugh and a bumping sound. I froze because I was a scaredy cat. I couldn't move. All I started to think about was how I was home alone and there was no phone or door I could lock around me. I wait for what feels like forever, then I decide that it'd be a good idea to go to my neighbor's house because it felt like my nightmare was coming true. I get up and quietly open my door that faces the attic. This motherfucker was hanging out in my attic with an ear-to-ear smile. I bolted downstairs. Our front door had a dead bolt you had to have a key to unlock, and I couldn't find a lock, so I ran into the backyard and started trying to hop my fence to my neighbor's yard. Apparently that creep had the damn key to my dead bolt. He runs out to the front door and is in my driveway yelling at the top of his lungs, "Baby girl fire!" Over and over and over. Neighbors called the police. When the cops showed up, he pisses his pants and says, "I need that little woman fire." The cops came in and investigated. He had been in my attic for God only knows how long, and he could see me through the vent in my room. After this happened, my dad started sleeping on the couch, and I slept in bed with my mom till I was 13. An interesting thing is, this incident almost perfectly matched up what my dream was, except I wasn't in my mom's room, and the guy wasn't bald, but he did have that same horrid smile. My parents never told me what ended up happening, and I'm glad. My story happened in 1988. I was an elementary school girl. I was playing outside with friends. My family had moved from the suburbs to the city of Los Angeles. My mom got a job at a big hospital. A little backstory about the incident. Apparently just before it happened, a $14,000 drug deal had gone bad. Some guy sold flour instead of cocaine to some really bad man. They took the man's sister hostage, raped and tortured her. They demanded ransom. My story begins here. So we were playing outside, and I would call the older friend Kay and her brother Junior. The loudest, strangest sound ever filled the air. I can describe it like fireworks. Everyone began running toward the sound. Stupid little kids we were. So did we. What I witnessed no one should have to. There were two girls in a red car with bullet holes everywhere. The best way to describe it would be to picture meat that had been tenderized. The flesh was open. You could see muscle tissue, blood everywhere. I couldn't process what I was seeing. Then someone pulled me back. I looked up and there was a man pointing a giant gun in my face, moving it back and forth to all of us. He walked up to the driver and made sure she was dead, then around to the passenger. He then did something that haunts me till this day. He raised the gun, which I later found out was an Uzi. He says, "I know where you live. You will be next if you say anything to the police." Those words in his stupid face haunt me still. Over the summer as a young girl, I would travel to North Dakota. Over this particular summer, Mom was staying in Dunseith, a town that was made up of houses, bars, 2 gas stations, a Dairy Queen knockoff, 1 grocery store, and a video rental place. It was the kind of small where you walked through the entire town in 30 minutes, and you knew everyone if you stayed there for longer than a month, or at least if you were a true local. As it stood, I was basically an outsider, and it took a while to adapt to the closeness of the community, not to mention the type of local that resided there. My mom was dating a man who at the time was taking care of a resident tribe elder. It is in this house, and also in the house of the neighbor who moved in next door, that this story really begins. It was a warm, boring morning like many others that had passed before. I say morning because the pack of people I was hanging with were late risers, myself included. In reality, it was only like 1 p.m. and we'd only been up for an hour max. As we sat in the backyard of Elder's house, the man from next door popped his head out his door. Now his house had a side porch, its face directly into the backyard where all of us were sitting. And of course the first thought is, fuck, an adult, and we're 12, and shit, fuck, hide the evidence. So like a bunch of dweebs, me and the 3 girls with me all play hide the can and still on fire cigarette as he decides to walk over to us. I could say that we were already really on edge, but it wasn't him that set us off. At least not yet. Hey girls, what you doing? Well, y'all mumble, make things up, try to sound like, oh no sir, we're all totally law-abiding youth, not screwing around. Nope, not us. Well, that's nice. Would you girls like to come over to my house for some coffee? No, I thought to myself, but I'm the outsider, and the oldest of us said sure. God, why did she agree? So we shuffle over the whole 15 feet to the man's house and enter single file. The entire time the group is chattering, giggling, acting like they were playing some sort of game by agreeing to do this. Meanwhile, I'm screaming inside my head that this is a fucking weird situation, along with the thoughts that we really need to do a 180 and run the fuck away, but now we're inside. Two of the girls follow him into the kitchen, and me and the others sit on the couch. I'm now sitting across from an odd, old-style TV with push buttons on the side. All I can see is a grainy black and white image of a bed in a plain room, with a window that has the curtains drawn. And laying in that bed is a woman on her side, covered in blankets, facing away from whatever the camera source is. I think so many thoughts at once, like, who is that? And why is this on the TV? It's like early 2000s by this point, and like there are cheap newer TVs than that. And then it hit me. This is probably someone in the house, and there's a camera watching her. So for those of you that think maybe such and such was sick and needed to be monitored, okay, I get that, but as soon as I realized the entire house had cameras, or at the very least a living room, bathroom, and a room with a corpse-still chick on the bed. The neighbor then asked for our names. I lied to him and said Crystal, which was my cousin's name. The other girls say similar, though one was dumb enough to give her a real name. After all this bullshit, I noticed that he was taking his sweet time with the coffee, which I was not about to drink. Roofies are a real thing, even if the girls around me didn't know, and one of the girls asked to use the restroom. She's led there and let in by the neighbor guy. It's only been 5, maybe 10 minutes and I was done, but in that time I noticed another thing. There was this Jolly Roger-esque weird symbol on printer paper taped up on a wall all over the place. When asked about it, he said it was his business symbol or something like that. Okay, but do you need it like every 5 feet? The chick that went to the bathroom and came back and sat on the couch with me and the other girl. She looks freaked. The coffee is finally done and 2 girls sip politely, but I have had enough psycho bullshit for one day. I said I was going, made some excuse, and the rest of the girls took the opportunity to follow me out. Once outside, the girl from the bathroom told us that there were weird skull and crossbone symbols carved into the mirror and was all over the walls. I can't really verify this, but I had to trust her on what she said. Needless to say, none of us told our various parents about the situation, and the topic sort of just dropped. Until a week later. The neighbor guy came over as Mom and I were leaving to go to some place and handed me a paper as I was standing outside the car. He said he had had fun talking to us and it was a gift. I unfolded it and it was a picture of a bottle of wine, and the label had been badly altered in Photoshop, so it had a skull and crossbone symbols on it, and the text read, Crystal name, Cabernet. It was a wine named after us, using all fake names we'd given. I freaked out and showed my mom and told her everything. She went over and talked with the dude, and that's the last I heard from him. I still got freaked out thinking about it, and thinking about what a grown man could have wanted to do with a couple of dumb girls.